Hey there, welcome to this episode of Experts on Purpose. The special guest we have today is Dr. Jeanne Michele. Dr. Jeanne is many things, part teacher, part modern day philosopher, part change agent. She is passionate about helping people create extraordinary lives and relationships that thrive. She specializes in helping individuals and couples work through crisis situations like infidelity, lack of life direction, breakups, and falling out of love. She believes in the healing power of courageous conversations to create deep and lasting change. Her first book, titled The Infidelity Cure, is slated to be released early next year. Hey, Jeanne, it's so good to have you on Experts on Purpose.
Hi, Jyotsna. It is great to be here. I'm excited to talk with you.
Same here. The very first time I connected with you a few weeks ago, I instantly knew that I should have you on my show because I just love the vibe that you have and the work that you're doing out there.
Thank you. You know, it's funny when you meet people, you just know, you just feel that instant connection. I felt the same with you.
Thank you, Jeanne. So I'm just curious to know, you've been into helping individuals and couples for a few years now, but how did it all get started from your corporate life?
Wow. So my corporate journey, I think it even started earlier than that. When I was a little kid, I was always intrigued with relationship. You know, my parents struggled in their relationship, and I had aunts and uncles that really had strong relationships and strong families and really loved each other. So even as a little kid, I was curious as to what that difference was. So then we fast forward through, going to college and things like that. And I wanted to be a teacher. And at the time I got out, there were too many teachers. So I didn't quite finish college at that point in time. And I jumped into a corporate career. And I really, really loved it. I worked with this woman who was amazing. She was such a perfectionist, and she really taught me how to strive to be the best I could be in everything that I did. And I learned a lot from her. I was just this young 18-year-old. No, I think it was 18 to 19-year-old coming in, working part-time there while I was going to school. And then ultimately I jumped into corporate full-time. Then I was hired by a really large international company to be an administrator and an executive assistant. I kind of worked my way up into that, and I loved it. And I had a boss that was so creative. We created videos, and his creativity pulled me into my own, and I just kept growing. And the thing that I realized the most was that I loved the people aspect. When he was able to get me involved and I was able to get involved with the people. And then he did sales training. So at that point in time, we didn't have Zoom, and he called people in from all over the country to come in and train them in sales. Well, in our organization at that time, all the outside salespeople were men. And all the inside salespeople, the customer cultivation people were women. And I just thought, well, it's not really fair that the men get to come in and do this big, seminar and workshop twice a year, and the women don't get anything. And I talked him into, and I actually had to go to the owner of the corporation at the time and said, I would like to help, do a training for the inside salespeople. And finally I got the okay. And I felt like each step along the way for me was about how do I help people cultivate who they are and get to the next level. And it was very exciting as I kind of watched my corporate career grow. So then at one point in time, they told me in order to grow to the next level, I needed to go from the corporate headquarters out into the field. And I had a guy that I worked with, kind of remotely being a part of the corporate headquarters. And he said, what would it take to get you to come to Southern California? And I said, you open a position for training and I would be interested. So I was in St. Louis at the time. And one day he called me and he said, hey, we're opening a training manager position. Do you want to apply? Now you have to apply because I don't know who I'm going to hire. Well, I knew that somewhere inside he had really done that to help attract me. So I moved into training, which I loved. And I moved into ultimately creating workshops for for people that were new supervisors. And that was my passion. And when I kept thinking about what do I love about what I do, it's the people aspect. So I'll say one more part and then we'll finally get to where I am now.
Sure.
I was walking around Laguna Beach in California, which is this cool little beach town. And I found this brochure for this school, and it was on spiritual psychology. And I thought,
Mm-hmm.
ooh, that is something really intriguing. And the way the school was set up was one weekend a month. And I thought,
Uh-huh.
I can do that. So at the time, I enrolled in that school. I got my master's degree, but I wasn't quite finished with my undergraduate. So at the same time, I finished both. And I really loved and felt empowered by what I learned through them. They really taught me how to get in touch with myself and clear out anything that's getting in the way for me being who I want to be. So then the next piece is I decided to go and get my doctorate. Wow. And I just kept going with my education. And one day there came a point where I was finished, and it's like, do I jump out of the corporate world? I mean, I had cool things. I had a little small teeny percentage of the profit. I had a company car, and I had all those really cool things of being in the corporate world. I thought, I really want to go out and create my own business. So that's kind of the beginning then of how I moved from corporate into what I do now. And there's more, but I've been talking for a lot. So does anything show up for you as any questions or any curiosities about that?
What's interesting about your story is most people that I speak to about transitioning from the corporate world to their own business tell me that they hated their jobs, their boss was horrible, they didn't like anything about their life, and out of desperation, they quit their job and they started whatever they have started. But in your case, you actually had a very good career. You loved what you were doing. You loved the people aspect. And yet you felt that there could be something more to this, right? So how can somebody who's already kind of doing well in life, but maybe they are feeling that there is one step above this, how can they really identify their true inner calling and just take that next step?
I think that's a great question. And I love what you're sharing. You know, so often in life, we have to make something wrong to do something else.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, when you're in something that you like, how do you still take that next level? So what I would say to that is sometimes we get this like gnawing sense that there's more, or you know, it's kind of what I would call a soul calling. There's something else out there for me. And even when it came from moving to St. Louis to Southern California, there was a part of me, there was this little voice that said, this is really important. And it's not just about the job. So I think it's to pay attention to those little voices that we hear and lean into them. You know, and I think you're going to know when you lean into it, you take a couple steps. I came out here, I spent the weekend in California trying to decide if I really wanted to make this move. And it kept opening up. And the more people I talked to, the more I thought, this is what I need to do. So I think it's listening to that voice, leaning into it, taking a couple of small steps and seeing, does it light up your world? Does it bring you joy? You know, are there new possibilities here? And be careful also the amount of people that you share that with, because sometimes people can be like, oh, you got a good job, you don't want to leave. Even that's true in relationships. Well, do you really want to be alone? Do you really want to leave your relationship? And sometimes there comes a point where it's time to grow to that next level. Does that help as far as kind of an intro way in?
I think it's all about going inwards and asking those questions.
Yes, for sure. And, you know, it really helps too, to have mentors along the way. You know, I view it, especially for women, because we tend to be relational creatures. I think that, you know, for me, I have one hand here and one hand here. So there are people that have done this before me that it's really important to connect with, and those people that you get a vibe with, like you talked about with us when we first met. And they leave clues. And then there's people that are not quite where you are that you can mentor and that you can help bring along. And I think both help you discover and start trusting that helping you trust yourself, that you can lean into something and that you're going to be okay.
That's so important.
Yes, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, from whatever you've told, I think if the listeners have to have some major takeaways, for me, it would be to keep continuing your education. You didn't stop at your bachelor's, you completed your master's, did your doctorate, and wherever you had opportunities, you did the other kinds of courses like the one on spirituality and things like that to develop yourself as a person. And then to get that confidence and the direction, you also had your mentors and coaches to guide you and support you. I think that's something that everybody watching or listening should definitely think about. So when you had that, that gnawing feeling that I need to have something more, something better, did you straight away know that I'm going to become a therapist for couples? Or did you try your hand at a couple of things and then probably this thing evolved for you?
That's a great question. So when I first, finished my doctorate, and I was ready to go, I talked to my boss and he said, is there anything we can do to get you to stay? And boy, that's tempting. Do I want more money? Do I want to get a better title? And I'm like, no, this is my time to really go out and explore me. And I was so grateful for the experiences that I had at this company. I really learned about life and facilitating challenges between people. If there was a boss and an employee that had a challenge, I loved doing that. And I said, no, I've got to jump. So I jumped. And then I'm like, okay, I can help anybody work with anything. I'm ready. And you're kind of like, oh, okay, well, I guess I need to get some clients. And I started taking donuts and cookies to OBGYN's office because I thought I'll start out working with women. And I said, same thing. Hi, here, passed out my card and said, send me people. And it took a little bit, but one of them called me up and she said, do you work with moms with postpartum depression? And I said, yes, sure. I knew nothing about it, but I thought, you know what, I'll figure it out. So I did a lot of research and it became a specialty. And what I discovered in that were typically women who were very career oriented and very good at their careers. Sometimes when it came to having a baby that was so unpredictable, there was a challenge in adjusting from, the known, and when you're making strides in the business world, but you don't when you're having a baby. So I started working with them, and then their husbands came in and said, I don't know what to do with my wife. She's just not the same. I'm struggling. How can I help her? And I found I really loved the couples work. Out of that, my couples work was really born. It was this little seed. And I think that's what I mean by leaning into it. It's like life will give you clues and it will say, oh, what do you think of this? And you're like, oh, I think I might like that. Let me try it. Or no, I don't think I want that. And the more we open up, and can clear out some of the things that are in the way of that, the more we can kind of lean into it and see what opens up for us. So that really opened up. And I found, and I think, my corporate career actually led to that too, because I loved facilitating trainings with multiple people and tracking the room and paying attention. And with couples, you're really tracking two people that are in the room and helping them, be able to communicate better with one another.
Right.
And, I just kept growing from there.
What inspires me is you did not just have a swanky office and wait for clients to come in, but you took the courage to knock at the doors of these doctors' offices, and from where you got the first opportunity. And you weren't fully equipped to take in those clients, but you still said yes, and you then did the homework, right? So after working with some of those clients to help heal their postpartum depression, did you continue doing that for a while? Or at what stage did you move to couples therapy and infidelity cure? That's the title of your upcoming book, right? So Correct. How did you gravitate to that zone?
What I find too, again, I want to call this kind of a spiritual thing about life, that people show up. And so all of a sudden I'm working with postpartum depression, and I kept getting more calls and more people showed up with postpartum depression. And I started doing the couples work. And then, I created my first website, which was such a baby website, but, and I started marketing the couples piece of it more. And then I found more people showed up with couples challenges, and I just kept leaning into it. I expanded, on the postpartum depression, and then more people started showing up, like I said, with couples. And then one day, a guy came in on my couch and he started talking and he said, you know what, I want my wife back. And he had had an affair. And he said, I don't know what I was thinking. I'm confused. I don't even know how this happened. And from there, I leaned into that and just started learning more and more. We have this idea about people who quote unquote cheat, and we really demonize them. And as I started digging in, more men then started showing up who had had affairs, who wanted to get back together with their wives. It's just like, again, the universe kind of starts sending us things that we're leaning into. And I really learned a lot. I discovered a lot. I started working to help them and their wives see if they could put things back together. And I just kept diving in. And of course, you do research along the way too. You know, you read people, you know, books and stuff on that. But I learn from everyone that comes in and sits on my couch, because I view it as I'm not here and they're here. It's like we're in this life challenge together and we explore, and, you know, it's a partnership the three of us create. And sometimes I talk with the guy and really explore what's going on inside of you. What were the things that were happening before this that caused you, you know, to lean into, you know, going outside your marriage instead of sitting down, talking to your wife and saying something's messed up. And what I'm finding that is a common thread in the person who betrayed, in the betrayer, and in the betrayal partner is this emptiness and this longing for something more. So the two people that have an affair think they find it in each other. And while the spouse is over here starting to feel empty too. And then when they start coming together and working on it, they start to find it within themselves and in the relationship. So I just kept, again, leaning, and I thought, I need to write about this because I think I have a bit of a different perspective on infidelity based on, you know, who I've worked through and what I've discovered.
Absolutely. And how do you think your approach is different from a typical marriage counselor's way of dealing with this?
Well, I think first of all, I mean, I really see this as a cry for aliveness. You know, something is missing and you didn't have the, you know, in those moments, there wasn't the courage to talk to each other. No, I'm starting to see my eyes wander. I'm attracted to somebody at work or whatever it is, because that's scary. It's a scary conversation to have. And I think that my approach is very non-judgmental. I don't view it as, oh, he cheated, he's bad, or she cheated, she's bad. I don't even like the word cheat. It's like we explore on a level of what's missing from your life and how can you discover it, and what can open up for you now that you're right up against the wall, facing the fact that you may lose everything. And when you have an affair, it ripples out to your children, to your community. I mean, it's like, in the sense of shame in this culture is so big, and yet temptation is all around us. It's kind of like we've got this weird juxtaposition of sexiness and it's wrong. You know, it's wrong to have an affair. And so my approach is that in order to really heal in an ideal world, it's all three people learning to heal and to get in touch with themselves and find ways that they can create that sense of aliveness, and know that while this person seemed to stimulate that in you, it's really not about the person. It's about getting in touch with some things that inside. And when a couple can come together from that perspective, instead of I'm wrong, you're right, you need to make it up to me. There's some of that at the beginning, of course. But what was missing here? What were we both not paying attention to? And when they can come to that place, they can really open up to a relationship that, quite frankly, can be far better than what they had when they were just kind of spinning in their own little circles.
Yeah.
So did I answer your question?
Absolutely. In fact, to continue with this, the general notion that people have is once the cup is broken, it's difficult to fix it, right? But in your teachings, I've heard you say in one of your previous interviews about how the relationship can be better than what it was before once they go through this process with you. So how does that work? Once they've had this like horrible phase of their life, they decide to take help from you. Then what is the magic that unfolds once they start talking about things? In fact, one of your motto that I really love is you can't heal what you don't talk about. So once they start talking about, what magic happens?
Thank you for that. Yes. And it is so true. And, again, we move into this place of we learn coping skills and we start coping with life, and we just go about our living. And once this breaks open and they are willing to really witness each other's pain, and it starts out with the betrayed really, really explaining how much this hurt. And they sit in a place where, I encourage the one who's betrayed, you don't defend, you really need to sit with, this is the pain inside of your spouse that the things that you have done has triggered. You really need to sit in that space of pain with that person and sincerely, have remorse, apologize, even though there may be a part of you that, realized I came alive over here. So they start to see each other, and they each begin to, they need to be willing to look at how they can do things differently, what was going on in them, and where they each might have missed connecting. It's not just, you need to make this up to me. It's like, okay, once there's some measure of forgiveness, then I work with each one individually too, because I tell people, when I work with you individually, we go wherever we need to go, and you can throw anything out on the table. And then that gives me information that when I work with them as a couple, I know kind of what's going on inside of each of them. And we start reconnecting, we start rebuilding in new ways. You can't, sometimes people say, we just want to go back to what was. Well, the truth is what wasn't working on some level, and you can never go back to what was. But how can you take the elements that are positive and strong in your relationship that have been, and build on those and rebuild something new? Which that's where the magic is. It's when they get to that place where they're like, okay, some things are happening here. We're paying more attention. They start to feel more connected as they're working through the pain of letting go of the past, or allowing the past to be a transforming agent to what they want to create in the future.
Right. This is so beautiful, because it's unrealistic to expect a relationship to be exactly the same over the years. But once something like this happens, the relationship becomes different, and it can be better when they seek professional help of people like you, Jeanne. So thank you for sharing that.
Well, you're welcome. You're welcome. I love it. And I love the vulnerability and the tenderness of how people show up. Jyotsna, when the beautiful moment for me is when we've got two people and one of them starts to go to a vulnerable place, maybe, tears or whatever. And I encourage the other person to just sit with that, just be a sacred witness to that. And then all of a sudden I see them softening. And there's a moment where they're looking at each other. And I will say, like, if it's to the guy, what do you think she needs right now? And it's, and he's like, can I give you a hug? And I say, you guys go for it. And they just sit there and they hold each other, and you can just feel something deepening and melting. I'm like a voyeur into this, beautiful transformation and connection. And that for me is just, there's so much joy in that. And that doesn't mean that they're healed and they walk out and everything's good. It means we are willing to work on it, and we really and truly realize how much we love each other.
Yeah, so beautiful. You also talk about a concept called the masculinity code. So what is that about?
Oh, goodness, you're going for everything today. I believe, and this has come out of also my, my intense work with men and, in the area of infidelity and just the men that come into my practice. And I find that women come in, it's like, I need a little tune-up. I'm a little bit off. Can we talk? Men, typically speaking, come in when I'll say they've been run over by a truck and they're bleeding and they know they need help. And I find that once a guy comes in, they're very, very loyal to the process. And it's like, oh, I've got a place that I can talk about things. And I think when I look at societally and culturally right now, women have worked very hard to attain equality. We've gone out and we fought against, wanting to get equal pay and whatever. And it's been like our mantra and our mission. And I think that builds, there is a building of that comes with like that camaraderie of women. Yes, we've got this and we want to build it. And I think in the process, that men are now, we're at the point where women have worked so hard. It's been our mission, our passion. And I think men have gotten a little bit lost along the way. It's like, what's my role with this new woman? And sometimes am I her mentor? Am I her partner? Am I her shoulder? Am I the person that goes shopping with her? We want so much from our men now, and I think it confuses them. And I think men are a little lost right now in trying to figure out how they fit into this new, what I call the age of partnership. I think we are entering into a true age of partnership. If you go back tens of thousands of years, it was a matriarchal society. And then we went to a patriarchal society, which is a society more run by masculine, by men. And now I think we're really entering into the age of partnership. And I think there is a new masculine code that's emerging. What does it mean to be a man these days with these really empowered women? How do I hold my own? How do I set boundaries? How do I become, the man that I want to be in partnership with these new women who are emerging, again, very strong and very empowered? And I think it's a different thing. It's not like it used to be. Men do this, women do this. Like roles, traditional roles are kind of out the window. How can we each lean into our purpose, which I love what you're doing with these podcasts, and fulfillment as individuals, and how do we come together as a couple and support each other?
This is so beautiful. And I think it's so important, especially in today's time and age where women are doing such great things and a lot of men are not able to cope up with that because their reference point is their mom, who was so different, right? So yeah. And I'm so happy that you've discovered all these things in your years of practice. So what would be your message to someone who is just starting out? They're already kind of an expert because they've done certain things probably in their life or helped a few people, but they haven't really created their signature program or this unique trademark solution that like you have, right? I'm sure you didn't do it overnight. You've created it over the years, but what would be your message to someone who is still probably trying to copy what they have learned in an online course and teach that to their students rather than creating something on their own? How should they do it?
Well, I think first of all, life leaves clues. Pay attention to that voice inside, as I said earlier, and lean into it and see if it feels like it opens you up or it shuts you down. I think that's first. Second is find your tribe and create your tribe. So finding your tribe is connecting with people and having them in that place of mentor or a mastermind group or whatever, that they help you think and inspire you to growth, And then create your tribe is, I have finally recently hired a team of people. I've had my web designer, my SEO guy, but I've now hired a social media person and a VA. It's probably long overdue, but I finally realized I cannot be just a one person. If I'm going to continue to grow to that next level and reinvent myself again as I'm growing, I really need that tribe of people around me to help. I think that's such a critical piece that being able to collaborate with people. Clean out your emotional closet. I don't know about you, but when I go to the place where I clean up my closet, I give stuff away, I throw stuff away, I make room for something new that wouldn't have been able to squish into my old closet. So when you clean out your emotional closet, you can do something like free form writing, which means you just write and write and write whatever comes into your head, and you don't reread it. Afterwards, you burn it, or you let it go, or you release it, or there's some other exercises that you can do. I think ritual for women is really powerful to help you let go of the past so you can make room for something new. And I think along the way also, it's important that you cultivate self-trust, and again, I think that comes back to having mentors that, that will say to you, oh, that's great, you did a great job. And then you also start saying that to yourself. And then one more thing, I think cultivate a learning orientation toward life. Everything that happens to us, I think, can lead us to new thoughts and new ideas and new ways of being. You know, sometimes we think, oh, just be positive. And there's something about sitting even in your own pain and asking what the message is in that, so that you can learn through that and open up to, you know, even more growth. I mean, life is a mixture of pain and pleasure, and you know, and I think to not dismiss the pain and just want to run away from it, but open into it and see what it has to teach you. And my last one, know that whatever you focus on grows. So we have this thing called a reticular activating system. And what that does is, you know, life has so many things out there. We cannot focus on everything. But when you start focusing on one thing, you start paying attention and you start noticing more of that one thing. Like they have an exercise that I don't know if you've heard of, like, let's say you want a red BMW.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that red BMW. All of a sudden you start seeing them everywhere. It's because you're training your mind. It's not a woo-woo thing. There is this part of your mind that, you know, that says, okay, I'm looking at this and I'm looking at that, and this is showing up more of. So pay attention to your thoughts, you know, and really focus on, you know, thinking about what you want, and then start paying attention and move into it.
Wow. I just asked for one and you gave me so many tips to really, you know, get in touch with your true authentic self and really own it and, you know, play a bigger game. So thank you so much, Jeanne, for sharing your gifts with us in today's show, and also giving a lot of encouragement for people who are starting out in their expert journey. So where can people find out more about you? And if they want to work with you, what would be the next steps?
Thank you, Jyotsna. My website is Living and Loving Courageously, and they can go there and send me an email. I also have an ebook I created that are the 10 things you can do now to strengthen your relationship. And if you just go in, you can click on it and that will pop up and you can sign up for that. And, you know, and just email me any questions you may have. You know, I'm very reachable and approachable, and I love helping people, you know, get in touch with themselves and help bridge that gap in relationship.
Awesome. Thank you so much once again for coming on the show, Jeanne.
Oh, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to connect with you. And this is, it's so fun to build and to open into questions and connections. So I appreciate you as an interviewer as well. Thank you.
Thank you.